Hello, welcome to a bit of an unusual content for this channel, which is belts. I don't plan to do belt reviews. This is just my personal belts that I have chosen to invest in after trying out a number of different belts from different manufacturers and different stores. This is two different belts from Core Essentials, and this is full grain buffalo leather gun belt, 1.5 inch wide, same width on this one, but this is full grain, as it's called, full grain gun belt. The buckles also come from Core Essentials. So before I get to this, little brief intro to the journey, how I selected to invest in higher quality belts. Is I used to shop on AliExpress. About 10 years ago, discovered the magic of the ratchet belt, which provides a much narrower, or the intervals between the adjustments are much closer compared to your traditional belts with holes punched through. Usually those holes are an inch apart, or a couple of centimeters apart at least. And so I discovered ratchet belts and started buying off of Amazon Chinese produced belts that were full grain or advertised as full grain leathers, etc. Went through a bunch of them because they hold up for a short time and deform or get otherwise damaged within a short period of time. This is just another example of a cheap AliExpress ratchet belt, which also has full grain. This is full grain leather, but with artificial some sort of plasticky coating, and this coating is what usually cracks after prolonged use of time. And depending on the quality of this artificial coating, it may last you a couple of months, a year, or maybe even a couple of years. Quickly show you the layers this is made out of. As we said already, this is what is called full grain leather, covered with some artificial coating. Then we have very low quality, what looks like bonded leather, very thin. I'm not even going to measure this. And the inner layer, this would be the inner layer that touches your pants. This is all some sort of plastic which has not deformed or cracked, or has no damage virtually anywhere. And this belt I probably wore for a couple of years, even used it as a work belt before it got all torn up. The generic buckles that come with this type of cheap belts, these belts are from anywhere from 7-8 USD to 20 USD, depending on where you get them, the brand and so on. This is the buckle, which has a simpler mechanism compared to the Core Essentials, and I'll get into details on that just a bit later. But these are the teeth that are supposed to catch on, and do catch on, to the belt here. And so you basically put this in and clamp that down, and that's all that holds this belt inside, inside the buckle. I have never had this come undone, just of the way it pushes against, this part pushes against your pants, against your belly, so it's not going to come undone. Plus the belt is pushing outwards, and the way this is set up is it just won't let it out. So long as the thickness of the buckle corresponds, and these are your cheap fashion belts. Now the Core Essentials belt, for example, will not go into the fashion type of cheaper buckle. It just won't fit in there because of the additional layers that it has and the overall thickness of the belt. Hence you need their own buckles, which are way better constructed than your generic buckles. Again, I'll show you the details now. But before I get into the review of these two different types of belts, again, one is full grain and the other one is top grain, obviously brown and black. This is buffalo, this is not specified. How I ended up getting this is what I want to talk about. So about 3 years ago, after extensive search of what kind of belts would hold up better, I do camping, I like bushcraft, and I wanted a belt that would that I could put my knife holsters on and they would hold up, and something like this would not happen, right? And so I did some research, watched a bunch of reviews like I usually do before investing in a product, and I selected the Core Essentials brand and the full grain, the top grain leather, two different belts, two colors actually, same belt, two different colors, brown and black. And I got these two buckles to go with them, and the idea was that I would rotate between this would be more of a dressy wear and this would be your woods kind of, you know, with the nice rugged coating, etc. So as this was more of a dressy one, I barely wore this black belt and it is still in almost pristine condition, whereas this belt I wore daily for those 3 years since I purchased it. And yes, it got some deformities here. This is the section where the belt loop right down your spine, you know, on your back side is located, and it usually pushes down on any kind of belt. This is not unusual. So this deformation was something to be expected, but what I did not expect out of a high quality full grain leather belt was this type of wear, and especially this dreadful cracking that I saw on the cheaper AliExpress belts. So when I looked at the cracks, I did not pull the belt apart, etc. I just looked at this and got quite frustrated. Contacted the company. Immediately they were very responsive, took full responsibility and explained that this is actually the coating that has cracked, and I confirm after detailed inspection of the belt and the different layers, this is the artificial foamy plastic coating that is put on top of the top grain leather. Now to show you that, let me get rid of this belt. So this basically now goes to trash. And here it is this is the part that I cut off because they come, they fit all the way up to 54. I believe it was, or they have two different sizes up to 44 and 54 or something. So here I've done some cuts where you can see this layer is all your foam underneath. Similar story as on top. They have artificial protective on the side. This is referred to as a protective layer. there may be some benefits to having this artificial, as this is the part where the body may touch the belt, the body, the pants, hence sweat, and the artificial layer does react differently to moisture than natural top grain or bare full grain leather, which would soak the sweat inside. So, and as I've said, I have not seen any damage on the inside of cheaper or these expensive belts. Expensive is relative, I should say, higher quality or more pricey compared to the cheaper generic belts. So that's your under layer. You've got the super membrane, they call it, proprietary. Very nice idea and a good execution. And after that layer, they have again bonded leather, or what looks like bonded leather. There's nothing natural about this. And then you've got your top grain leather, and you can do your research about that. This is the grains, and yes, it is leather, and then it is covered by a rather thick layer of this foamy imitation of the top grain. And again, in my case, the imitation, this protective layer, cracked. I reached out to the company, explained that this is not what I was expecting when purchasing a leather belt as described as full grain, etc. Unfortunately, they do not specify that it's not only top grain leather, but has an artificial coating on top. They do not mention that on their site when you're looking at the product description of this belt, but this issue is mentioned when you're reading the description of full grain leather, where they mention that the full grain belts are not covered with the protective top layer, and then they go into the characteristics of your full grain and how that reacts to scratches or moisture, or how it gets patina, etc., which is all nice and attractive and good. So yeah, I reached out to the company and they were willing to send out a replacement for both, and they actually sent out this full grain buffalo belts. And I have to, so I'll take this away also, because I already discussed the brown one, and this is the same thing. So I have not worn it. I will wear it just because it is interesting if this one will crack after a while also. But yeah, also I wanted to do quick measurements of the difference. These buffalo belts, even though from the outer width are the same, 1.5 inches for both, the internal superfiber is of different width, and they have made it wider, 29, almost 30 millimeters in this case, in the full grain version, whereas here we have 26 and a half approximately. So 3.5 millimeters wider on the full grain buffalo belt. The rest of the layers, I would say this layer is the same, this bonded leather. Underneath you have what looks like a very thin layer of, and I've burned it to test. So yeah, there is plenty of glue here, but this layer underneath looks like a very thin layer of top grain leather, again covered with this artificial foamy material. some sort of plastic. But what is very nice about this belt is that you get your top grain, full grain, which is the strongest part of any leather. Yes, it gets after a while it will get character, scratches, patina, oils, and etc. And it will turn into a different visual from this after a while. But it is, as you can see, quite thick, and I can confirm that this is full grain, 2.2 millimeters thick approximately. So I'm also happy to report that the stitching that they have used, this is coming from undoing this belt, and both the top stitching and under stitching this is nylon, and that's what you want on a belt, because it is stronger than cotton. So yeah, let me get this out. I'll quickly show you what the black buffalo full grain leather belt looks like. This is how it comes, 44 inches. Very nice that you have markings and you can cut straight here. Do not expect to make a cut straight, one cut or even two cuts with a knife. It's several layers and thick layers, so take your time, make your cuts. And I haven't seen a pair of scissors that would cut this. Forget, you need a box cutter knife, and a strong one at that. So yeah, this is what the black one looks like. The construction quality is very good on both varieties, the top grain and the full grain, both very high quality stitching, everything proportions, everything is correct, with the exception that my protective layer just cracked. Let me quickly also show you this, that how the grain looks on the full grain leather. As I said, this is quite thick. I've seen leather belts that are just this thick alone, full grain or top grain. So I do have quite high hopes for this. I know that this should not crack. You can actually use some leather conditioners, etc., on belts, on your leather straps, etc., and that should prolong the life. Now let me talk a bit about the buckle and why you should invest in this buckle. So the prices. The combination, this combination is about 70 USD, depending on if you get it on sale or holiday sale, etc. Regular prices are usually 50 bucks for the belt and 20 bucks for the clasp, so 70 bucks. And this top grain combination would be only $10 cheaper. And I strongly suggest that you do invest into this rather than so-called full grain. Again, they're not lying about the full grain. This is full grain, but this just covered with this protective layer that adds an additional variable of potential damage and defects. Okay, so let me flip the clasp over, because this is important. This clasp costs $20. They have clasps starting from 20 to 30 USD. I don't have the higher priced clasps. I have two clasps that are 20 USD, and I've been more than happy with both of them. So as you can see the difference. First of all, I don't want to undo this right now, but The teeth are much wider and deeper than this. As you can see, the width is almost double the size. Let me quickly do a caliper measure. So that's approximately 18 millimeters, 2 centimeters, and this is 26 and a half. So significantly wider than the generic clasp. The handle very nice. Here you need a tool. This is toolless. There's a nice grip, and most importantly, this has the two well done screws, and these screws hold down the belt very securely, especially if you drill holes onto the belt like I have done, like I've done here. So this is the marking of the teeth. Let me quickly see if I can show you the cheaper belt. Again, you can see that this is much narrower, the teeth, and this is wider. And then these two screw holes, because it has this plastic, this is about 1.1 millimeter thick. So once you drill holes into this, there's no way the belt can slide out with two screws going through here. They don't tell you in the instructions to do this, they just say to crank this down. But if you do that, then it's not as secure as drilling holes into your belt and putting them through. And how you do that is, first you slide this in, close the teeth first, this clasp thing. You need to do that because it will drive out the belt a couple of millimeters. And if you drill holes first, put your screws through and then push down, it will put pressure on the screws. So I suggest sliding this in first, pull down on your clasp, and then take your markings, you know, with a marker. So you slide this in, push down, take your markings, undo, slide it out, put two holes onto the made marks, and then slide it in, screw down, clamp down, and you are done. And so, as I said, this clasp alone costs 20 bucks. On Amazon you can get a deal for these generic belts, not only the clasps but the belts, the entire belts, two belts, for about 20 bucks. Do I suggest that you go and do that? No, absolutely not. I strongly suggest investing into something like this, and as my own experience has shown, rather than skimping your 10 or 15 or 20 bucks on full grain versus top grain, go with full grain. And there's plenty of very nice videos explaining what the difference between these two is. And if you're interested in why I am suggesting full grain versus top grain, I would strongly advise that you go and look at those videos as well. So I'm quite happy with any company that backs their products and values not only the marketing and sales but after product support. I cannot say anything negative about how they handled my grievance, and I can only be thankful and respect their willingness to provide replacement for both of the belts. Again, I'll be testing this out, and depending on how impressed I am with this, I may post a video down maybe a year or two after this one. Obviously it will hold up for at least a couple of years because the full grain leather did the top grain leather held up for 3 years daily wear, no gun belts, and occasional knife holsters, knife sheath wear. But I'm quite happy with the experience with Core Essentials. Basically, this is not a sponsored video. I paid for the belts, and because they had a damage and a defect, the company respectfully replaced them. So this is not a sponsored video. I'm not biased in any commercial way other than just my use. As you can tell by the wear and the scratches, I use my tools, I use my accessories to their intended purpose. Thank you for staying with me, whoever did. Please like the video if you found the content interesting, and subscribe for more. Thank you. Have a good day.